And we're on. My production team tells me that we're on. Hooray. Just give us a quick shout out if you can hear us in the chat or if there's how we're doing. But I'll give it a quick sec if someone could just pipe in.
Here.
Thank you, Gregory. Can hear you fine. That's great. That's good to hear. Mark P. can hear you now. Yes. Everyone's chiming in.
Yes. Happy face.
Yes. So thank you again for coming to the Scotch Malt Whisky Society April Outturn, or as it sort of now feels at this point in time, the 90-minute listening to Craig and Dave swallow extravaganza. So it's still quite amazing that we have folks joining in and still want to be a part of this. And frankly, let's be honest, it's because of the whiskeys. It's not we're a mere vessel to the awesomeness of the whiskeys that are in the Scotch Malt Whisky Society Outturn. So thank you very much.
Now I'm conscious.
Oh God. Thank you so much for coming and being a part of it. And I know we sent some tasting kits around, perhaps a little bit farther outside of Edmonton than usual, and hopefully those arrived where they needed to arrive at. And you're sitting, joining us with 7 whiskeys in front of you that we're going to dive right into. Flavor, elevate your flavor frontier is the theme of this month's Outturn. So every whiskey that we have is a little bit sort of outdoor themed, a bit of an outdoor motif to the tasting, which is very apropos of the current cultural moment we're in now in April 2021. But not to beat that dead horse, let's get into it. Let's kick it off. No one needs to remind you that things are a little weird right now. But let's go right into dram number 1, which is Hill Walking Happiness. And so Craig and I are set up here with our water droppers, which we may opt to use at some point, with our wonderful map of Scotland, which that's the last time I'll refer to it, and our tasting booklets. Now, if you want to do this tasting blind, I recommend you do that, because the tasting booklet that you have here, this has all your answers in it, the pricing of the bottles, the bottling, the cask numbers, and all that stuff. So if you don't like fun and you just want to know the details, open up your booklet. However, if you want to try these whiskeys blind, like how we usually do when we're tasting here, maybe don't refer to this quite yet. Just give the whiskeys a try first and then dive into the booklet. So the other thing too, I want to emphasize this every tasting that I do, give each whiskey a quick, just 2-second once over. So that just gives, on a fresh nose, it gives you a chance to just get a sense for, okay, I like this, I don't like this, this makes me, think of a certain thing, or I'm excited to revisit this. And that just gives a chance for you to have sort of a fresh, get an aromatic impression of each of these on a fresh nose. So yeah, I mean, as always, as we can expect, quite a diverse array of aromas and colors,
indeed,
and styles and profiles. It's good. It's another Outturn, so hoorah! So yeah, so dram number 1, which is Hill Walking Happiness. Let's give this one a nose and a taste.
The hill is covered in Skittles.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, Craig, for sure. There's certainly a candy.
It's a hard candy, like vanilla wafer, grapes and green apples, kind of thing.
All right. Hey, you're look at this guy. Craig's determined to show me up with my ridiculous bullshit. I mean,
no.
I
I inhaled way too deeply now. My nose feels like it's going to bleed.
It's
I smell iron.
it's nice though. I mean, this is a lot of in a way, in the way that these tastings, the whiskeys are in sequence. This is pretty typical for the first whiskey that we usually have. It's got that nice sort of vanilla quality, a little bit more spirit forward than cask forward. That sort of nice kind of. Were I a pretentious man, I would call it an amuse-bouche.
Question for you.
That sort of fresh, light thing. Yeah, what's up?
If you stick your nose in a glass, what is something that jumps out at you that would make you think it's immediately spirit forward or cask forward? Like, is there like a note?
Good question. I mean, yeah, I use those terms sort of without explaining them at all, but
You never do that, though.
yeah. So thank you, Greg, for saying that. Yeah, I mean, for me, cask driven. You think vanilla. You think those caramelized sugar aromas, toffee, those sorts of things. That's going to be from your bourbon casks. But then, if we're talking about sherry casks, you'll start to get those sort of like dried fruit, raisin, dates, dried apricots, that kind of thing. That tends to be on the more cask-driven side of things. On the more spirit-driven side of things, you'll get exactly what you get. This is a great, if we're talking about, okay, what is a spirit-driven aroma? This is a really good example of that. There's fresh fruit, so it's not dried fruit. Like there's kind of like, you were sort of getting in this area, I think about a little bit of citrusiness, a little bit of like, I would say maybe pear.
I definitely see the pear.
Yeah, and that's not from casks. That's from like a really young sort of vibrant spirit.
It's like a marshmallow wrapped pear.
It's really some really nice, very dynamic. And you get that too, like with young whiskeys, there will be sort of a whole rainbow of characteristics that everything is very sharply delineated and in your face. With an older whiskey, a more cask-driven whiskey, those things will the edges will be kind of rounded off. It'll get to be a bit more sort of, I don't want to say the word refined, but a bit more...
Nuanced, you think?
I don't know if nuanced, that's not even the right word either, but they'll calm down a bit. Everything will become more well integrated, will sort of knit together in a cohesive way. I really like young whiskeys like this because they're not knitted together like that. Like they have those sharp edges and really dynamic aromatic profiles.
Shall we taste it then?
Yes, let's.
Okay.
That's good. I'm glad. Thank you, Craig. You're always moving us along, so that's good. I appreciate that. And please chime in the chat. How you're feeling, what you're thinking. I know it looks like we've got some long-standing members in the chat, which is awesome. We've got some non-members, which is great too. This month we branched out. We were able to branch out. We had enough whiskey that we could do it to non-members. So thank you for joining us on this thing that we do every month as members of the Scotch Malt Whisky Society. I will maybe closer to the end talk a little bit about membership. And give you the Tupperware pitch at the end. We'll focus on the whiskeys first. And Brandon is saying green apple. Yeah, I get that. It's that sort of almost like unripe fruit.
It's not so much green apple; it's green apple core.
The
like as you get closer to the middle, there's like that. It's almost like a bitterness. This also has like an earthy note to it.
Earthiness,
like kind of yeah. For myself, anyway. It's like a sharp, earthy. It's a flavor I get in like Belgian beer, like Brettanomyces Belgian beer.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah. Like a saison kind of thing.
Oh, okay.
But not as robust, obviously.
Interesting. Yeah, I think for me, like if we're just to give it that fruit, very fruity, light, delicate.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's edgy. It has a bite to it, which I like. Some people don't like that. Some people love it. It's a matter of personal preference. I like that sort of, especially, first whiskey of the day, which, I mean, let's be honest. But if this were, if this were the first whiskey of the day, this is the sort of one that I would want it to be, because it has that just that dynamic and aggressive edge to it.
I really see what you mean by the sharpness.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if you wanted to get, and we'll get deeper into this as the tasting goes along, but if we really want to get into strange territory, I mean, you can think of every whiskey has a shape. If you were to draw this, this would be, this would have angles on it. This would have sharp edges. On the outside, it might have spherical components toward the inside. I don't know.
That sounds like math.
Rein me in. Like if this gets too crazy, just can you? Because I've been thinking about a lot of things lately, and especially as concerns neuroscience and the science of smell and taste. That I don't want to shock anyone right away with sort of these things, but maybe by the end we'll get into that territory. But
or we could do like a blooper reel with you waxing about.
Yeah, make it real easy to cut out and just throw away. But
waxing lyrical on neuroscience.
Yeah, something. Yeah, and it will surprise very few of you who are watching this video that I know nothing about anything. But caveat and full disclosure. But what I do know, and what I can say about this first dram, this is very cool. So this is also part of the SMWS Giving Spirit program. So some of you may have heard of that if you were taking part in the January Outturn. Some of you may be new to this. This Giving Spirit program is really cool. So this is something that SMWS Canada specifically is doing, and the whole gist of this program is, they were sort of sitting down and saying, listen, 2020 was a tough year for a lot of people. It was a little rough. So, what does SMWS Canada do to sort of give back a little bit and to just say thanks for everyone who supported while this was going on, and to sort of spread goodwill. And so this is what they're doing, this Giving Spirit program. And so occasionally what they'll do is, with one bottle in the Outturn, 100% of the profits from that will go to a charity. And so in January, the bottle number 85.64, baked bananas and burnt bacon, 100% of that went to the Big Brothers and Big Sisters of Canada, which is quite nice and definitely a worthy cause. This first dram that we're trying this evening is the Giving Spirit bottle for this month, and all of the profits are going to the Canadian Cancer Society. So again, a worthy cause, and charities, you feel for them. They can sort of use everything they can get at this time. So that's what this one's about. So if you do end up purchasing a bottle of this, you can feel good that it's going to a good place.
The baked bananas and burnt bacon was delicious.
Yeah, was it a good one?
Really good.
I'm sad I never got a chance to try it, but hey, that's how she goes.
And it was exactly what it said. It was bananas and bacon.
Yeah, because sometimes, I mean, the SMWS tasting notes can go a little bit into
a little esoteric.
It's the esoteric stratosphere of metaphors, but yeah, sometimes you get those ones that are like, oh yeah, that's
they
exactly
hit the nail on the head
with
that one for sure.
Well, and I mean, to be fair, one thing that's kind of nice about the Scotch Malt Whisky Society is that there is a bit of a degree of figurative language. Yeah,
really?
Maybe a bit more than a degree of figurative language in the tasting notes, in the bottling names. It's, at the end of the day, hopefully all a bit of fun and a departure from the typical tasting note that you get when you pick up any bottle of Scotch, and it's a canon of 15 to 20 words, coffee, caramel, whatever.
It's part of the fun.
Yeah, and so like tasting notes like that are fine, but when you read them, it's so boring. It's like it's like if you just had a dice that had all those words on it, and you just rolled those dice, you could come up with a tasting note like that. This is kind of cool. This is sort of, we start to go down the path of really how complex and interesting our sense of smell and taste is. So that's what you want to do when you're tasting something. I mean, sometimes all you want to do is, after you mow the lawn, have a Corona, and that hits the spot, and it doesn't have to be a religious experience. But, we're fortunate, we're gifted now with 7 whiskeys in front of us that are not lawnmower beers. These are proper, meditative things. So
Speaking of tasting,
yeah, you want to move on to the second? I need like a red light that just flashes like, Next whiskey. Okay, Highland Coup d'etat. Give this a go. I find that actually very banana-ish.
I smell banana.
Like overripe, like starts to get black and brown spots on the skin type.
Delicious.
Yeah, that's when when it starts to.
I also smell chocolate.
Chocolatey.
Bananas and chocolate. There's a bit of like a herbaceous thing floating on in the background to me as well. Like a grassy, gardeny note. That is a word. Gardeny. Gardenish. Garden adjacent. Yeah, it's nice. It's not as pungent as the first one.
No, certainly not. There's a softness on the nose that you can appreciate. There's definitely a difference there, yeah.
This one would also be more spirit forward.
Yeah, it's spirit forward, but not as edgy as the first. But
Yeah.
definitely, I mean, there's not a whole lot of in here what you would sort of associate with oak. Yeah. Although sometimes that sort of banana split thing you can get with new, like virgin American oak. First fill is not the right way to put it. Like brand new American oak will sometimes give you that sort of like chocolate banana combo.
Gotcha.
I don't know if that's what this is, though. I wouldn't say. This is really weird, though, because there is sort of like a very kind of, I want to call it sort of a subterranean, well, you would almost call it a smokiness, like
Oh, interesting.
deep in there.
I might be able to detect like a bit of a sulfur note,
You finding don't say sulfur. Never say the S word at a tasting.
but it's like that struck match sulfur. It's not
Okay.
like rotten.
Yeah, that's I don't perceive that at all. But each to their own on that one. I don't know if I want to say there's like a char, like almost like a bell, it kind of reminds me of like a barrel char, like a sort of kind of a flinty. I don't know, charcoal is the thing that's kind of coming to mind when I think about it.
I'm going in.
Go in.
Well, that's tasty. It's like syrupy waffles and soft candy.
That's nice, and it's got some density on the palate that the first one doesn't have.
It is much heavier or viscous.
Brandon in the chat asks, anybody get a mint note? That's interesting. What kind of mint are we talking about? Because are we talking about peppermint, spearmint, chewing gum mint?
Is
breath
wintergreen
mint?
spearmint?
I'm already embarrassed having asked what kind of mint you're talking about because I know absolutely nothing about mint. But I mean, what sort of that's interesting. Like, does it sort of take you to a particular experience of mint that you can sort of identify?
Very pleasant.
Yeah, pleasant, and I like the first one, quite dynamic, but there is a bit of a roundness to it, a bit more of a sort of voluptuous quality to the mouthfeel, to the texture of it. Yeah, someone in the chat saying a little bit bitter on the finish. Okay, I can see that.
I can understand that. Yep. This feels like it's a higher ABV.
Yeah, you figure?
Yeah. Even just coming off like out of the glass. It's
Oh, so you can say it's an aromatic thing that you get that gives
singeing
you
my
that
nose
suspicion?
hairs more than the first one.
Okay, yeah. we'll put that to the test. I'm going to cut this down with a bit of water just because I feel like that's the kind of day it is today. Just give it a shot, see what happens. Sometimes, a little bit of water can...
Why not?
Bring out some more aromatics or different aromatics. I mean, when you add water, you change what's in your glass. You might want to do that. You might not want to do that, but whenever you add water, you set off a series of chemical reactions that are irreversible. So here we are.
Brandon says spearmint.
Smells like a spear.
Yeah, just a spear, like a rusty harpoon.
Aftertaste a little bit like smoking something that looks like mint. Fascinating.
I'll take Deborah's word on that one.
Yeah, and just so you know, this is a good point to mention this. The chat is not preserved when you go and look at these videos, so feel free. This is don't hold back. Put all your opinions in the chat. Actually, only people who have the link can take part in the chat. So yeah, please feel free to be unfiltered in this. That's not preserved in any way.
I see what Brian was saying about the mint, though. It's becoming a little more apparent.
Mint?
Yeah.
On the nose?
Yeah. I like it less with water, though.
Everton is with us as well. Cheers, Everton. Thanks for joining us. Well, and I mean, our sense of smell is such that we're also very impressionable. It's an impressionable sense. You have experiences where, you're especially in a tasting, and everyone is nosing the same thing all at the same time, molecularly exactly the same liquid, and someone says everyone's confused and there's no consensus, and then someone says, banana, and everyone's like, yeah. So we are sort of sensitive in that way. That's not to say that our sense of smell is deficient in any way. I think that's actually sort of a benefit of the sense of smell, that it's sort of modulated by our emotional empathy with each other. So it's kind of a cool thing that we can all have that guided experience. Like we're all sort of offering things to each other, and we're all sort of on the same road when we share whiskey like this and share tasting notes. You pulling me in? Is that what that look was about? Okay, all right, okay. Andre says definitely better without water. Yeah, I mean, and that's going to be a matter of personal preference. I don't mind it with the water, but it's weird that to me, actually, someone in the chat mentioned bitterness. The water actually, to my palate, sort of intensified the bitterness, which is weird. You would think, well, I don't know what you would think, but what someone would think about that, but. Yeah, adding water is unpredictable and chaotic. It doesn't always do what you think it would do.
As you say, irreversible.
And irreversible, unless you add more whiskey in the bottle, or into your glass. Yeah. You know what though? I'm definitely bad with water. Okay, everyone's got their own position. I kind of like the nose a bit better with some water. I find it takes maybe some of that sharpness out of it. That was not for you?
It smells waxy now, like a crayon.
Waxy like a crayon.
And not a nice crayon.
A bad crayon.
Like one of those weird, like, not a good scented crayon. Or like a dryer lint trap, I don't know. Yeah, water ruined that one for me.
Not a fan? Okay.
No. Without water, really good.
I'm kind of the reverse on that.
What if I had more whiskey in my glass though and added just a few drops of water?
Yeah, I mean,
because maybe I overwatered it.
When you're, yeah. I mean,
like
it's possible. You can do. I mean, it's definitely possible. Like the thing is to consider that when we're drinking these SMWS whiskeys, they're bottled at cask strength. So that doesn't necessarily mean they're bottled at the best strength they could ever possibly be bottled at. It just means there's been nothing added. So it's up to you if you decide for yourself, oh, you know what, I really want some ice in this, or I want a few drops of water, or I want a slice of lemon. You have the choice. Nothing's been added. So I think a lot of people are very sort of resistant to adding water to their whiskey because I don't want to taint what I'm drinking with water. And I mean, that's noble. Okay, sure. But whenever you have something that's bottled at 40% or 43% or 46%, somebody's just added water for you. So you are the chef when you have these whiskeys in front of you to add water or not add water. And ideally, if you own the bottle, you can play around a lot and really find out where the sweet spot is for you. Because it's going to be different for everybody, depending on what your palate is and all these things. Okay, let's do dram number 3. And as we dive into that, Brandon in the chat saying, I found it sweeter with water. Yeah, sometimes you'll find that. That's actually something that's sort of a commonality. Sweetness will sort of come in with water. A crayon used by the kids at a restaurant. With, with sticky fingers.
Not just drawn with, but like placed in maybe ears.
Okay, so
the nose.
So we'll go on to dram number 3, which is worlds away.
This smells
from dram number 1 and 2.
This smells just sumptuous. There's like if you ever looked at like a picture of like a feast on a table, that's what this smells like. Not necessarily like the food,
right?
But there's just like a luxury about this.
Just that's
represented by that
sort
photo.
of abundance of goodness.
Like a cornucopia. I think that's the word I'm looking for.
Everton says it's way better with water. So hey, yeah, each to their own. And you don't know until you try. The worst thing you could do is have a preconceived notion to say, I never add water to whiskey, and just sip your way through it and hate every moment of it. Or be the sort of person who says, oh, you have to add water to every whiskey you drink because otherwise you don't unlock or whatever your opinion might be on that. You're both wrong. If that's if you only do one thing and that's what you do and you have a dogma about that, you're not correct. Be flexible. Try lots of things. And that's the only way you'll come to the sort of best enjoyment of whatever's in your glass. And I'm enjoying this a lot. Dram number 3. Ooh.
Yeah, it's got some body.
And when we were talking about spirit driven, that's whiskey number 1 and 2, very spirit driven. Whiskey number 3 is like just putting your nose in a barrel.
I want to live in this barrel.
Yeah, it's just,
I want this barrel to be in my living room.
Yeah, that's exceptional. Very profound and deep spice notes.
But like wafery cookies and like a spiced, it's almost like a compote, like a spread of some kind.
Yeah, like what's that? Like, you've ever had apple butter?
I don't think so.
Kind of reminds me of that. Like it's got that sort of like caramelized apple butter flavor and aroma.
Yeah.
It's that really sort of deep, profound.
I feel like if you put this on your face, it would take wrinkles out. Yeah. It's like that amazing.
Fountain of youth, says Craig.
Indeed. Well, I'm going to taste it.
Yeah, just there's a buttery, kind of butteriness. And that's typically a signpost of an older whiskey, that vanilla butter thing that we're getting. That's okay, we're dealing with something older.
Goes down like butter. That's very good.
Jake says, I'd better come pick one of these up. I agree, my friend.
But the finish isn't long, though. There's lots of flavor up front, but it doesn't really stick around for too long.
Okay. Now, see, I might disagree with you on that, because it persists on the palate. I'll just give you my opinion. Y'all are drinking it at home, so decide for yourself. For me, this has a different lingering finish than the previous two. So the previous two have that sort of, just that aggressive, sort of very obvious, very kind of in your face impact that persists on the palate just because it's so assertive. This, how it sort of develops on the palate, it's very subtle. It's not, doesn't have, the volume knob isn't, turned up to 11. It's very sort of low and rumbling. This is the subwoofer. You know what I mean? The whiskey number 1 and 2 are the tweeter. You're at a live music venue and you're next to the the speakers that have the tweeter on them, and it's just like and it's very immediate what it's all about. This is the subwoofer. This is vibrating on wavelengths that are sort of
almost undetectable,
moving through your body and slow. Anyway, Mark's okay. Yeah, so some interesting things in the chat that are being said.
I do see the gingerbread dough.
Yeah, gingerbread
I
dough.
get that.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
I get that.
Cinnamon and nutmeg. That's what immediately, Mark, thanks for chiming in on that. For me, right away, that's what I thought. Cinnamon, nutmeg, baking spice, like gingerbread is a good way to put it. And just caramelized sugars, that sort of just like developed sugar that's gone through a caramelization process through the Maillard reaction. Brown sugars, yeah.
It is delicious.
It's
very good.
My God.
It is very good.
A desert island dream. I wouldn't say no if someone presented me a bottle with this on a desert island. Between this and a bottle of Captain Morgan's, I'd probably pick this.
It's weird. I mean, my past experience with the society whiskeys here, I'm not usually doing cartwheels of joy over the older whiskeys. They're good, but this is really good.
Yeah.
This is really, really good.
It's
this barrel was enchanted.
Yeah, it is kind of magical, yeah. And so, I say this often in tastings. Decide for yourself if you think there's anything to it. But they say the rule of thumb is leave a whiskey on your palate half a second for every year the whiskey is old. Let's just imagine that this is a very old whiskey. Try leaving it on your palate for 14 seconds. Just as a random number that I've thrown out. Leave it on your palate for 14 seconds and just see what happens. Because the way I would drink this whiskey is very different from the way I would drink the first two. If I'm just sitting down to have a glass of whiskey, do you know what I'm saying? Like,
well, this you would take time to parse out the nuance and analyze.
Well, yeah, I think. It's. Yeah, I want to spend more time with it.
I want to spend time alone with this.
Turn the lights down.
Exactly.
And put on.
This
Bach
I'll have with friends.
Yeah.
And this I'll just go in the dark.
Yeah. I laugh, but you're right. Like there's a sort of it sort of maybe asks for solitude. Like it's really meditative.
It just draws you in and says, just be with me.
Yeah. You sort of have to come to it, whereas maybe the first two whiskeys, they come to you, and there's no mistaking that. Yeah. So yeah, fair. Well,
I'm not adding water to that.
Damn. Yeah, I might. Well.
Nope.
What the hell? Let's just see what happens. The finish is still lingering, says Andre. Yeah, I agree. But in a very subtle way. Yeah, where the finish is just very different from the first two.
What does the water do for you?
Rounds out the nose, even more so. In maybe a negative way. I haven't decided yet. I like, as much as I'd like to sit here for 2.5 hours and just drink what's in this glass, that's not doing anyone any favors. So,
we can agree it's amazing.
I have a separate. We should do like a separate after hours stream.
Yeah, 13 hours long. We're 9 whiskeys in.
Yeah. Okay, so that's a desert island dream. That's a delightful. I like
very,
that.
Very good.
I like that a lot.
Yeah.
It's a very uncommon style of whiskey. So not just that it's interesting in and of itself, but it's. You have whiskeys like this, like 1 and 2. These are sort of bread and butter for SNWS. Mm-hmm. These are, and of course every whiskey is different. The single cask is magical, and all these things. But whiskey number 1 and 2 are pretty reliable. This style and intensity of whiskey you can expect a lot of times from SMWS. Whiskey number 3, that's really something you don't try every day.
No.
Very, very unique. Okay, let's. I think we'll beat the dead horse on that one. So
yes,
we'll go to dram number 4, which is Monkberry Moon Delight, which I'm told is it doesn't seem like it makes a whole lot of sense, and it doesn't because it's a Paul like many other Paul McCartney songs. This is named after a Paul McCartney song.
So this one is definitely more youthful.
Yep.
It's like the first
Yeah, it's, I mean, and this is what I like actually about whiskey tastings, when you have these like very sharp distinctions between two whiskeys that are right back to back. Mm-hmm. A lot of people, when they put a sequence to a whiskey tasting, they try and make it as sort of, what's the antonym of jarring?
Welcoming?
Maybe. They try and make it as sort of like
accepting,
gentle as possible.
Yeah, that would make more sense.
Moving slowly from one profile to another, going from very mellow to aggressive, going from unpeated to peated. This is the way that typically tastings are structured and sequenced when it comes to Scotch. I hate that. I really like tastings where you have, two whiskeys like this that are just so jarringly different. Both on the nose and I expect on the palate as well.
So yeah, what I think is the older one is smooth, round, sumptuous. Mm-hmm. This is like a sewing needle. Yeah. But a fruity sewing needle.
Yep. And right up front, a bit more burn to it on the palate. Mm-hmm. And yeah, like as kind of we were talking about earlier, mm-hmm. maybe a bit more of what you would expect from fresh fruit. I think maybe some berry, but this also has like, there is a component of that sort of cellar kind of basement. We were talking about this last month, the sort of like wet basement. I get a bit of that.
Some wet compartment of the house. Attic or basement. Or...
Behind the washing machine.
Yeah.
But that's nice. And yeah, two. When was the last time? You had two whiskeys that were that different back to back. Like that's pretty cool.
It's been a while.
That's really just enlivens the palate. It fills the soul with feelings of gratitude to the universe. Mark P says sour cherries.
Interesting.
Well, I was talking with Craig about this earlier in the week, and I've been thinking about it a lot, especially when it comes to whiskey. What could be more boring than a whiskey that is merely enjoyable? Sometimes what you want with a whiskey is there's qualities that maybe you don't like, and you have to figure out what they are, mm-hmm. or mysterious elements. That's what's cool about drinking Scotch, I think, and that's what SMWS is all about. Just those qualities that maybe don't have. We might not have a language for them right away, just because they're so different and so unique.
Do you have any immediate feedback on this one?
So Andre's saying, I love this one. Can't really say why, but I really like this. Yeah, and you know what? That's the other thing. Like sometimes, like your enjoyment will be ineffable. There will be no real rhyme or reason or words to explain why, and that's fine too. He's saying tough act to follow, and that's fair as well. And that's something to consider, when you're trying these. We're sort of, every whiskey that we try is going to be influenced by the one that came before it. No matter how objective you think you can be, we're sort of on a storyline here a little bit, in that the whiskey before is going to influence the subsequent whiskey. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I can see,
I really do like it.
It's Mark in the chat says strawberries. Jake is saying strawberries as well, and that, you know what? Yep. Sort of the more I approach this, the more I think, yeah, that's just got that fleshy berry sort of. Oh, hey, our friend Roger up in Fort McMurray. Cheers, my friend. Thanks for joining in. Metallic on nose and palate. I don't know if that's good or bad. But okay, interesting, fair.
I don't love it.
You're not
I do like it.
Not effusively
No,
positive?
I'm not head over the heels and
Okay.
yeah, it's good, but
Anise said something really interesting. I get fruit and it's on top of a bowl of Weetabix. Yeah, so like you get that like the good part of the cereal and like the crappy part of the cereal. All yeah, where it's like you're kind of looking forward to the berry aspect. That's really fascinating, actually. Pineapple for sure when you add water. Okay, so Everton's saying add some water. I will follow your lead,
curious.
my friend.
I like
Let's
pineapples.
do it.
There's so little in here, I'll just do one drop. Thanks, Dave.
It wouldn't be a Scotch tasting if you didn't, rid me about not pouring you enough whiskey, but. Oh, that's interesting. Adrian in the chat saying some sort of tea oolong. That's okay. If you've never had a chance to do, and it's something maybe one day when we can use this tasting room to do public tastings again, we'll do. I think a tea and whiskey tasting would be really interesting. Because I think actually. I like to, if I'm going to sit down and get analytical about whiskey, I actually like to have a bit of caffeine first. There's just something about it. I don't know, I'll usually do a coffee maybe an hour or 2 hours before. Now, I don't know if that's the bitterness that's sort of like maybe exciting the palate a little bit, but I think there's something to the caffeine too where it's sort of elevating and it can bring sort of more joy, I think, sometimes. And I've done some tea with some friends, like tea before whiskey. Like you have a tea first, and then you'll get into some whiskeys, and it can be really nice. They're really actually more complementary than you'd think.
Interesting. I never would have guessed.
Rochelle saying cherry and mild menthol mint afternote, almost refreshing. Okay.
I would say it is refreshing.
Yeah, on the, like you mean on the palate wise.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good. It's good.
Yeah, I mean, what do you say though? Like you have these four. It's almost like we're using the full vocabulary tonight, and we're only a little over halfway through. And if you have these all, Lane saying marmalade tart. That's interesting. If you have these all in front of you, we're a little over halfway through. Just give a quick nose, just a quick 1-2 to where we've been. Well, on whiskey 2, this for me, there's a peaty quality. Whiskey number 2 is peated.
This smells like Skittles and Sprite.
Skittles. 2.
I do kind of get what you're saying about number 2.
Yeah.
It's subtle, but
very, very.
There's something like
below
earthy,
the surface.
smoky.
Mm-hmm. But in that sort of realm of aromas, yeah. 3 is.
3 is still
pretty much where we left it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So that's Monkberry Moon Delight. Let's proceed on to dram number 4. Going the extra miles.
This is like a rocky beach. If someone drew on the rocks with a highlighter.
What color of highlighter, Greg?
It's just a black one.
To me, first thing that jumped out at me on this was like, when you're like carving a pumpkin and you're like taking the guts out of it.
Yes.
It has that sort of like, that stringy, sloppy.
Oh, really?
That's what I smelled right away.
I haven't carved a pumpkin in a while. I don't really remember what that smells like.
Number 1 smells like dish soap now, says someone. Yeah, hey. But yeah, this is like that sort of like raw pumpkin guts.
Yes.
That's what it makes me think of, but hey, there's no right or wrong.
No, this is earthy, it's flinty, it's mineralic. And it's got that.
There's depth though, yeah. Like there's, I mean, sort of each time I come back to this, we've had these poured in our glasses for about half an hour now, so there's a bit of oxidization that's happened here. It's not, you wouldn't expect them to be too volatile, but almost every time I come back to this, I'm sort of starting to appreciate something a little bit different. Working with clay. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, I understand that.
Clay, that's interesting.
I'm excited to try this.
Yeah?
Like, really excited.
A little sip of water here.
It doesn't smell as young as...
Paint can and orange. like an empty paint can, or what are you talking?
Like a tangerine floating in a paint can?
To a degree, though, paint can, I understand. There's an element of sort of solventiness on the nose.
Yeah.
Liking that?
Yeah, very much. No pumpkin guts on the palate.
Yeah, I get a bit of a Cavendish pipe tobacco thing going on.
I have no idea what that smells like.
No, I'll bring one of these days. I'll bring some Cavendish.
Do you smoke a pipe?
Occasionally, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, every now and then.
Like one of those, like an actual pipe?
Yeah.
It's very distinguished.
It's certainly not one I do. But yeah, I mean, pipe tobacco. It's like anything else. There's the 90%, and this is very applicable to SMWS. When it comes to Scotch, 90% of the Scotch that you see and can buy is not blended and created for people like us tonight. It's created to be accessible and as easygoing as possible, and for the most part, I mean, this is a gross overgeneralization, but the average whiskey is not made to enjoy in the way that we're sort of having fun with it tonight. And it's true with cigars, it's true with pipe tobacco. Once you start to sort of get to know the real stuff, then you get some really interesting aromas and flavors. And that's what we're doing tonight, so hooray. There's a hint of smoke like bacon. Okay. Yeah, that nose is very, very dynamic. I just keep going back to it, and there's just something new there every time.
This is delicious.
You liking that?
Very much.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very good. There is a bit of smoke to it.
Smoke.
Like it's a very
something that's been burnt.
faint, wispy note of smoke. Like you were cooking bacon, then you went to bed and forgot about it. Although I'm sure that'd be really bad in the morning.
The palate is really weird too. It's got up front. There's a sweetness on the palate, but it sort of finishes on the drying, like a astringent side of things, which is really unique.
Oh yeah.
Everton says, I taste very little peat. Yeah, I wouldn't say this is...
No, it's super light.
In the context of peated whiskeys, obviously there's an element of peat. That's...
Like the distiller just looked at some peat. And that somehow...
The distiller was named peat. But no, like there's a component of peat that's undeniable, but it's not, I went on and on last tasting about a particular whiskey that had peat but didn't have peat, and it was ridiculous. So thank you for everyone for sitting through that. And this is very much the same. There's peat, but it's not in your face.
Was that the last Society tasting you mean?
Yeah.
Was that the... What was it called?
The one previous to the last, the penultimate whiskey.
Oh, was that the... It was the Loch Lomond?
Yeah.
Because the last one was the Swedish one.
Yeah, so Loch Lomond, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, great whiskey.
So if you want to revisit that good 10, 15 minutes of awkwardness, there's a link for that. There'll be a card at the end of the video.
I'm sure that's saved.
Revisit that moment of professionalism. But this is nice. I mean, again, this is like very... I could spend a lot of time with this. It's really, really complex. Gregory says it was an Inchmoen. Yeah, I mean, Loch Lomond, Inchmoen. There's probably some mnemonic poem you could come up with to memorize all those things, but life's too short.
Cool.
Jake throwing a spoiler in the chat that this is a PX finish. Well, but I mean, maybe not too surprising. Even you look at the color of this. This is quite dark. This is, I would say, probably even darker than dram number 3, and there's a definite age difference there.
I wouldn't know. There's hardly any left.
Yeah. Whoever poured these whiskeys was just an inconsiderate,
So stingy.
boob. But man, wow.
Another
Really good
exceptional
stuff.
whiskey. That
Really
was
good stuff.
Really good. My second favorite so far.
Cool. People are sort of lighting the chat up right now. This is great.
Prosciutto.
Prosciutto. Yeah. Hey. Well, in a way, that's not totally weird. Like there's that sort of, like when you have, like cured meat has a flavor. Like it has a very distinctive flavor, and sometimes, I mean, I've caught the bottling number out of the corner of my eye here of what this is, and this distillery, sometimes you will get that sort of smoked meat, sometimes a smoked fish, but this is more like a smoked pork kind of flavor that I get, and I think that makes sense to me. Prosciutto makes sense to me. Cured meat is, yeah, in the ballpark here. Okay, shall we proceed? Let's go to dram number 6. Does anyone here got their good French, got their beret on tonight? Anyone can divine this one? Je suis boucheron et je vais bien, I think.
Do you speak any French? Production team are multilingualists, I see.
They're loving it. I'm a lumberjack and I'm okay. So yeah, I'm told this is a reference.
Is it a Monty Python thing?
It's a reference to a Monty Python thing, which is before my time, but anyway.
I am cheese. It's got interesting.
Yeah.
Cheese.
This is, for me, even more on the spirit side than the first two. I'm getting notes on the nose of this that you almost get like on new make spirit, so spirit right out of a still. Untouched by oak.
So maybe like a refill cask? Or
if someone said, bet your life savings, I would say that this is younger than. Well, let's have fun. Okay, let's actually do this.
okay.
Younger than 8. I'd say this. Okay, this is, if I had to put a number on it, guess how. 7 years old. Refill hogshead. Let's call it a hogshead.
Okay.
If I had, gun to my head, that's what I would say.
Greg's loving this one.
Greg's
Favorite tonight
yeah,
by a
yeah.
landslide.
Well, yeah.
A landslide of burlap and fish.
It's.
It does smell delicious.
Yeah.
Oh, it does. It smells like a smoky balloon. You know those really cheap rubber balloons?
Yeah.
That dangle on the end of lines?
Yeah.
Your mother attaches it to your wrist so it doesn't float
Yeah,
away.
and it's like almost like, sort of, rubber at different stages of its life has different aromatic properties, and like sort of when rubber starts to perish, it gets this sort of like almost like sort of foul smell. Like there's like sort of like perishing rubber, like a that I perceive on this. Yeah.
Did you listen to a podcast on rubber as well?
No. Second favorite. Some people saying in the chat, people liking this. Definitely, but there's like a real,
on the nose, it's my second favorite. Yeah.
Machine shop, like
Like oil trench.
bearing grease.
Yeah. But someone threw a fish in the sump oil.
Snappy on the palate, but not harsh. I don't find it harsh.
Well, it's good.
Yeah.
That's really good.
Yeah, like sometimes you expect, when you have these, okay, this is going to be a really young whiskey, sometimes you just get cracked with this really aggressive sort of overbearing alcohol burn on the palate. There's a bit of that, but it's sort of couched within these really nice
This is older than you think it is.
Yeah,
I'm
you
sure.
figure?
Yeah. Yeah. This is what I really love about peated whiskey. There's always a serious juxtaposition of flavors. It's vanilla, it's smoke, it's like a dirty old bag, it's a perished rubber balloon, it's a singed racquetball. Like it's all so good.
Yeah. Well, peat has a way of sort of being that sort of X factor in a whiskey that even younger whiskeys, if there's a peat component, it can sort of graze over what might otherwise be a fault, can sort of amplify that to be like a moment of excitement. So an unpeated whiskey that smelled like a perishing rubber balloon might not otherwise be desirable. But the peat has this way of the weirdness of what it is, can sort of integrate all these otherwise very bizarre. But I mean, we'll say this, that peat itself is probably what's responsible for some of these solventy, wacky aromas and flavors that we're getting. So yeah.
Fish slapping dance.
Fish slapping dance.
That's more Monty Python.
Everton says, I will trade you 2 peat drams for 1 more of a Desert Island Dream. My April Fool's joke was gonna be that the store was gonna be open 24 hours over the Easter weekend, but could have leveraged that now.
No, I'm not working that shift.
No.
Unless,
by surprise.
yeah.
But that's good. But and you said like right at the outset burlap. Do you still feel that? Yeah, because I'm kind of with you on that. Like it's got that almost fibrous, like burning fibers, burning natural fibers.
It smells like my granddad's toolkit.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
What was in that toolkit? What was it used for?
Everything.
All-purpose.
No,
toolkit.
Cars, woodworking. But he always kept it well oiled. And that's
a key.
That is what I smell. Yeah.
Well, it's funny too, especially as wood ages, and if it has like a finish on it, that'll start to off-gas all these really lovely aromas too, with grease and with all that combination. Yeah, I'm with you on that, 100%.
Like a fresh box of latex gloves on the nose.
Huh, interesting.
But there's honey in the fingers of the latex gloves.
Okay, so we'll go on to, let's proceed then on to dram number 7, which is Intense Seaside Experience. Got a taste and a smell. I'm not going to say anything.
So I'm sure, as they often do, they've thrown in peat from 2 different regions.
Yep.
So this will probably be, yeah, so that's coastal, whereas the other one was more like an island or like a highland peat. It's more earthy or forest floor, mulchy, and this one is like medicinal, briny.
This is like straight from a hospital, like just
there's the latex gloves,
bandages.
Like that's iodine.
Like just like antiseptic wipes. There's people starting to do trades in the chat. This is great. This is good. Creating a whiskey Silk Road in the YouTube chat. barbecue fish and fresh road tar. Okay, all right.
We should get Greg to host one of these.
Yeah, to me, this just, this reminds me of, what do you call it? Polysporin.
Interesting. I haven't smelled polysporin in a long time.
No?
I'll take your word for it. Andre smelled us getting his vaccine. Cheers to your vaccination.
Our
That's
friend
good.
over on the east getting the vaccination. That's great. Tastes like Brad is going to buy them all. Not sure who Brad is, but cheers. Yeah, this is just a very highly medical, but some people will have their own sort of emotional connection with that smell. For me, that's a very sort of wholesome smell. Jake says, I feel like this is the ultimate COVID test.
COVID
Yeah,
doesn't survive
if
whiskey.
this doesn't smell like much to you, go get the swab. This is an absolute slap in the face
Yep.
of just blah,
It's very coastal on the palate. It's also very salty. Very, very salty.
Yeah, it's funny, the peat on the palate, it doesn't have that medicinal sort of tang on the palate.
Nope.
A little bit there right on the finish, but it's not like on the nose. Okay, this is a liquid Band-Aid.
Yeah.
On the palate, no, it's got this really weird sort of, I don't know. Well, can you qualify this in any way? Even compared to the last, yeah.
It's so drastically different. This is campfire. This is a fish wrapped in gauze.
Fish.
Yeah.
Fish. Maybe even just on the edge of us being spoiled. Andre says, as a dedicated peat lover, this is the best of the night IMO. Okay. Certainly, as far as the peat component is concerned, it's the most forceful. Yeah. Much more forceful than the previous. And
I like this one more.
I'm sorry, dram.
Previous dram.
The French lumberjack dram. I mean, they're so different. I mean,
They are so different.
It's a cliche, but I mean, never a better example of apples and oranges. Like they're really, really from different trees, in a sense. But whew.
It's
This one is I almost got to take a bit of a distance from, because it's like I was diving in there and I felt it. Like it really singed.
It's very, very. Oh, it's latex. It's
Latex,
very,
yeah.
very latex.
Well, and the texture is so different from the previous too.
Yep.
Texture is
I'm gonna try some water.
so much more. You add some water to this?
I'm
Yeah.
very curious.
All right, we'll give it a go. See what happens. We've got nothing,
We should do a peat tasting
nothing to
here.
lose.
A peated whiskey tasting.
Peated whiskey tasting?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, those have certainly been done before, back in the good old days. Probably worth doing again. Yeah, because I think.
We've got quite a few. We can throw an Octomore in here.
Yeah. I mean, there's no end. Like, there's a lot of really good peated whiskey, and a lot of really good peated whiskey outside of Islay. A lot of people, when they think peated whiskey, of course they think Lafroig and Lagavulin and those things, but you also have, Ben Romick. You also have Springbank. You also have
Ardmore.
Ardmore,
Highland
Lecheg. There's a whole universe of peat out there. Yeah.
Latex is more subdued.
With the water?
Yeah.
You find?
And there's like it's almost like a syrupy note.
Syrup?
Or
Like golden syrup or like
imagine
Aunt Jemima
syrup
or-
running down the inside of a fishbowl.
Okay.
That's
Yeah, I don't actually. You know what? Well, what do you think, Craig? With water impressions?
definitely without water.
Well, yeah,
Definitely.
the water with this one actually sort of guts the
It totally guts it.
palate. I find. Yeah.
No, it's not the same whiskey.
Yeah.
At all. I've ruined it.
God, curse it! Gosh darn it! So yeah, so there you have it. If you have all these poured in front of you, we've gone on this journey. It's worth, maybe just revisiting what you tried at the beginning. Just give a quick nose to each one, and you get right
Still
away
Sprite and Skittles.
how far we've come with all of these. And you know what? Some are going to be very reminiscent to you. Some are going to be very, very familiar, and some are going to be completely new.
That Desert Island Dream is still...
Yeah, it almost kind of smells like rum to me now.
There is
Like
a rum
it has,
note, yeah.
And you know what? It's when you get there, Dram 5 is, or I'm sorry, I'm bad for this. I always misnumber these.
The 5?
Dram 6 is very different, and it's the last one that we just had. You know what I mean? So aromatically, almost a different beast at this point.
Number 5 smells more smoky to me.
Yeah,
It's like a light soot.
it changed. I actually found this changed a lot. Yeah, as well. Yeah. Well, I mean, what do you say? That's 7 really phenomenal whiskeys. I can't say that I didn't enjoy a single one of these. They were all very unique, very different, and all very enjoyable in their own respect.
Did you have a favorite?
That's tough. You know what? Can I even say? Man. I don't know. I honestly, I'm not, these were all so enjoyable. I don't know. I guess it depends what time of day you ask. But
I had 2 favorites.
what did you think? So, what do you figure?
The Desert Island Dream,
Yeah.
for those alone times when it's raining and you just want to sit by the
Yeah.
window and stare out
Yeah.
at the world. That's your solitary contemplative whiskey. And I think for just I want to go grab something out of the cupboard, it'd be tossed between number 5 and 6.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
They're
that's
pretty
fair.
close.
Well, and I mean that's a point well taken because it's a mood thing too.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. I'm in the mood tonight to enjoy all of these, but you think, yeah, what would it be? But I think it's yes, and do chime in the chat too. What you figure your favorites were. I will sort of sing a song of lament for Dram number 1. It's just as a category in these tastings that we do. So often, it's the one that sort of gets forgotten because it's just so often eclipsed by other extreme whiskeys. But give it a revisit and give it a try. I actually really like this one.
It smells lovely. It does smell really good.
Tends to be the case that just for whatever reason, psychological research will give answers to this. But Dram number 1 is just almost always sells the poorest. Not because it is the poorest, but I think just because it's the introduction to a tasting menu of absurdly complex whiskeys. Yeah, I suppose we'll give a quick turnaround of these bottles. I didn't realize last month, all of you who have these tastings at home, you have the tasting booklet that has all this information on it. So I'm not going to go actually on and on about pricing and things like that. But I will give a quick turnaround on these bottles so you can see what they look like, and we'll talk really briefly about them. So. So Dram number 1, Hill Walking Happiness, and again, as you recall, this is the Giving Spirit bottle. So if you purchase a bottle of this, that money goes straight to charity from SMWS Canada. Thanks to them for that. Hill Walking Happiness cask number on this is 68.41, and this comes from a distillery called Blair Athol. Sort of a distillery you only really see bottled by independent bottlers, like a lot of the stuff that we get here from the society. And this is in a spicy and sweet flavor profile, which I don't necessarily agree with, but I mean,
I don't think it was spicy.
Yeah,
Sweet, I get.
I don't know. I mean, there's about 6. I shouldn't say this, but there's about 6 or 7 flavor profiles that are just, to me, seem fairly random. But I mean, the best thing to do is just to try the whiskeys, and I commend all of you tonight who are here watching the stream for doing exactly that. But yeah, very nice. So that's the first dram, Hill Walking Happiness. Dram number 2, which is actually in our oily and coastal profile, which is sort of cool. I like that. There's usually you'll see those towards the end because they can often flirt with and are sort of complementary to that peaty, salty ocean profile. But this was second, which I thought was quite enlightened. Highland Coup d'etat.
Is Clynelish not coastal? They're on the coast, are they not?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's relatively
The
close.
space side, the whole of Scotland is coastal if you think about it.
But they're like right on
Are they?
the edge of the water, I think.
Okay.
Don't quote me on that.
Yeah.
I'm sure I'll get corrected in the chat.
I mean, at the end of the day, I will have a quick aside just to say that, like with wine, terroir is a big deal because, wine is fruit. So, the soil conditions, the climate in the year that the fruit was grown, when the fruit was harvested, who harvested the fruit, this all matters. In what way was the fruit harvested? With whiskey terroir, I mean, I'm opening up a can of worms here. I acknowledge that, but exactly where the whiskey was distilled doesn't totally matter because it's distilled in an enclosed copper vessel, and a lot of times it's not aged on site. It'll be sent, off of a Glasgow highway to mature. So, like where it physically is doesn't, I think, impart as much sort of quality as a lot of this sort of the feelings about it will. That being said, this is clearly a coastal profile. Yeah. So I mean, who knows?
Blue Freezy.
Gregory says number 2 tastes like a blue freezy, and my friend, I cannot disagree with you on that one. And also says, previous to that, which I like, we need a new flavor profile for meaty, savory, and gamey. I like that. It doesn't have the same sort of marketing ring. The marketing department. I would. Yes,
I would buy that.
We would buy that, but
I'd be all over that.
Okay. So Highland Coup d'etat, cask number 26.149, which means that this is distilled at Clynelish. And only 8 years old. So that's quite. I mean, it's
impressive.
Yeah,
it's impressive.
Yeah. I mean, that's all that has to be said about that. Okay. And 58.1%. It doesn't really come off that way. I didn't think. Comes off quite a bit softer than that. Dram number 3, which is in our perennial favorite juicy oak and vanilla flavor profile. And that is this guy here. One of the fancy golden bottles. So cask number 35.275, which means that this is a Glenmoray. A coastal distillery, I think. No, I'm just kidding. This is, I believe, actually fully matured in a first fill toasted hogshead. So that's very interesting. A very fresh cask, which would explain a lot of that, what you get from this, that sort of those toffee, caramel, the deep flavors, oak flavors that you get from that. And in that cask for 25 years. So, I mean, if that's not a testament to a long-term maturation in a cask, I don't know what is.
It's very opulent.
Opulent is
I think it's a
beautiful and perfect word for it. Yeah. Hey, this was distilled on my birthday. Not my birth date, but 24 November. Wow. So if anyone wants to buy this for me, I'll accept.
Do you want to go halfsies on
it? What's cool about this and what you see a lot with, especially with well-aged SMWS whiskeys, is that the ABV on this is still quite high. This is 59.6%.
Really?
Yeah. So this is a bruiser. Like, this is almost 60% alcohol. But I mean, tell me that you could have said that.
I can
having knows, like, no, like
I can almost put my beak at the bottom of the glass, and it's not burny or hot at all.
Yeah, I mean, just that's outrageous that that's 60%. So you'll see that a lot with SMWS whiskeys. Casks with a lot of integrity, still bottled at high strength. But I mean, that's a absolute mystery to me, how it's that delicate at that strength. That's amazing. Yeah, cool. Okay, and Monkberry Moon Delight is our next one, and in the spirit of contrasts, this bad boy is a mere 8 years old. So wow. And this was done in a recharred hogshead. So those casks where they scrape the inside out and then rechar and then refill them. You would almost think sherry based on the aroma, I thought. Just because it has that sort of fruit-based, sort of basement smell you sometimes get from sherry casks. But
and what is it?
it may, well, they say recharred hogshead. It may have been a sherry hogshead, though usually they'll say if that's what it was. Usually if they just say hogshead, they'll...
Usually I think bourbon.
Typically, yeah, they'd be referring to bourbon. Because sherry is... Everyone loves the word sherry, so, if you can inject that word in there somewhere, you're making someone happy. But yeah.
Interesting.
It's got definitely a fruity quality to it. Gregory asks, what the hell is Monkberry? Apparently something that
Paul McCartney
made up, yeah, so. But a really complex and deep whiskey as well. Right back to a 25-year-old, but wow, very different. Okay, dram number 5. Going the extra miles. This is from cask number 4.257, which means that this comes from our friends on the Highland Island of Orkney, Highland Park. 15 years old. 15-year-old from distillery number 4. Initial cask, ex-bourbon hogshead.
Okay.
So this, you'll see here, they've qualified it. It's a bourbon hogshead. And then a final cask for 1 year in a first fill PX hogshead, Pedro Jimenez, which is a type of sherry. Typically a sweeter, sort of thicker, more syrupy type of sherry. This is beautiful. I have to be honest, I'm usually not big. This is where my sort of inner curmudgeon comes out. The finishing casks, I just find that they just lack the complexity that a full-term maturation has. I don't know if that's psychological or,
Does it say how long they were in each?
So with 13 years in the bourbon hogshead,
Okay.
and 1 year in the PX hogshead.
Okay.
So even in the context of finishes, it's like not that long. But I don't think this suffers from that at all. And I wouldn't actually pick this as a finishing cask, because a lot of times, and especially when it's finished in like a wine cask or a sherry cask for a short period of time, it'll just be really simple. Like it'll just be like, oh, it smells like sherry.
Yep.
This is like really profound and complex and deep, and yeah, I wouldn't have predicted that it's just like a 1 year finish. Yeah.
Maybe the cask was still wet. Has
Or
sherry sloshing around in it.
But when you would expect that when you have something like that, that's going to lend itself to simplicity, because it's just going to be contributing just sherry flavor. But this is, I mean, obviously when you look at the color of this, there's
It may indicate some
sherry
influence.
Yeah, you know what? Sherry cask is a good guess if you look at the color of this, and it's only 14 years old.
Just a soggy cask.
But that being said, it's on the nose. It's not like a big sherry thing. Like it's that smokiness kind of carries through, that barbecue, that meatiness that some people were talking about carries through.
The first society whiskey I ever tried, and I'll remember this until the day I die.
Oh my
was at
God!
Highland Park. So the first day I started work here, almost 2 years ago, it was a 15-year-old Highland Park.
Ah, okay.
It was that Rusty Claymore washed up on the beach.
Ah, yes.
And it was
course.
also the first cask strength whiskey I'd ever had.
Ah, so that is a recipe for mind-blowing, having your mind blown.
It was one of those. I've heard the term epiphany whiskey.
Yes,
thrown around.
yeah.
So I mean, I'd had whiskey before I worked here, but I mean that was kind of like a primer or a gateway.
Yeah.
On this whole kind of journey I started a few years back.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I mean, that's, I think a lot of people had that sort of experience with that first and for me, like I'm the same way. Like the first SMWS whiskey I ever had, like, you know, people didn't know if they had to take me to the hospital. Like, I was just, my mouth was, my jaw unhinged. And so, yeah, I mean, that's what's great about this, is that you try some of these whiskeys that are just incredible.
Yeah, it was eye-opening, to say the least.
Yeah. So that's going the extra miles. Yeah, man, that's just what a thing to have on a Friday, enjoying like this. Okay, and now we'll go to dram number. We'll go into dram number 6. Cigar ash and wet dog. Bam! I'm in love. I wonder. Probably, you know, you could create. You could turn your tasting note into a non-fungible token. Everyone's doing that these days. That'd be a good one. I'd buy that one.
Oh, Mark
Craig,
has his Claymore.
I'm still milking my Claymore bottle. Love it.
If you want to come milk it.
Yeah. That's it. Share some of that cream this way. You know,
It's
anytime.
so good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So dram number 6. Je suis boucheron et je vais bien. This is another finishing cask. So this was started in an ex-bourbon hogshead and then finished in a second fill barrique, French oak cask.
That's wine.
French, and they actually so barrique typically you expect is a French wine, but they specify in the tasting notes here 12 years in the bourbon hogshead and then transfer into the second fill red wine barrique for the remainder of its maturation, which was 2 years, because this is 14 years old. So I was 100% wrong. I said this was 8. So Craig gets my life savings. It's really not. Don't celebrate. There's nothing.
Dirty bicycle.
Yeah,
you ride to work every day.
you really.
I love the smell of this. It's become less peaty on the nose.
Yeah.
Like it's less campfire. But that might be because I've been ruined by the rest of the pack here.
Well, and that's the other thing too. There is an element of palate fatigue that sets in at a certain point. For me, I mean, I've been drinking cask strength whiskey pretty much 24 hours a day for the last 10 years, and 7 is actually is a satisfying limit when it comes to cask strength and whiskeys of this quality. There's really only so much your palate can sort of take in. Now, you know, if we took a 2-hour break and had a meal, okay, then we can get into some more stuff. But everyone's got a different threshold. Everyone's a little bit, but I mean, you can sort of develop that as well. You know, if you drink constantly, which I highly recommend.
Okay.
We'll go to dram number 7. Which the nose, I'm getting like mustard on this now, like yellow, like
Interesting.
French's mustard, like that hot dog mustard. I love that, which is usually makes you think of Lafroig. Lafroig is like that. Some of these single cask Lafroigs.
I'll take your word for that. No, it's still fish eyes, vanilla wafers for me.
But on the palate, yeah, quite nice on the palate too. Still, well, what do you say? Well, this is from our friends on Isla's largest distillery, which is Kalila. 12 million liters of absolute alcohol per year. So they are cranking.
Just a little bit.
They are cranking this stuff out, and I've never had a bad one actually. So yeah, Kalila is always money in the bank as far as I'm concerned for quality. Also distilled on, there you go, 24th of September. So interesting. So there you go. That is the Scotch Malt Whisky Society April Outturn.
Another great batch of whiskeys.
What a banger this was.
Yeah, this is
My
very
goodness.
delicious.
So, I guess real quick before we sign off, if you liked any of the bottles that you tried tonight, and you're a member of the Scotch Malt Whisky Society, of course you can purchase any of these that you enjoyed. I would recommend send an email to ordering@kegendcork.com, and I'll be monitoring that email address as the orders come in. I'll be putting the orders together, and I shall let you know before I leave tonight about availability and all those sorts of things. So if you liked a bottle and you want to pick one up, shoot me a quick email at ordering@kegendcork.com, and I shall put the order together for you. Yeah, and we got.
Greg's already staking his claim.
He's already waiting outside. He's already pulled up.
Why wait till tomorrow? Let's come knock on the window now. Greg, her Dave will be here.
Yeah. So I will make a quick caveat to say, consider how amazing it is if you think about where we are in the cosmos. So here we are on Earth, in this solar system that we're in this Milky Way galaxy, traveling at what people expect is about 600 kilometers per second through space. And bear with me, Craig. I'm getting somewhere with this. So there we are. Consider that the Milky Way galaxy has about 100 billion stars. There's about 100 billion galaxies in the universe, so the theories go. And here we are each one of us, with what's calculated to be 83 billion neurons in our brain. So I appreciate that we don't necessarily look out to the stars, but what we do here when we taste is we look inward to those 84 billion, which is its own sort of cosmic awesomeness. So I thank you for being here to enjoy that with us in the way that we do it, and for all those years, for members, old-term members who have been here all along, new members who just joined in to become part of this and take part in the virtual tastings, and those of you who are not yet members and are curious as to what the fuck I'm talking about.
I'm still trying to figure it out.
There's SMWS is great for that sort of thing, and being part of a community where you have people that are excited about these sorts of things and analyzing these whiskeys in this way. So with that having been said, I will say a quick, again, and final thank you to all of you. If you are curious about this, I suppose the YouTube thing is to say like and subscribe and hit the bell or whatever. With that, I shall, do you have anything to add, Craig? Anything you want to interject in there?
Nothing profound.
Nothing profound.
Thanks for joining us. I enjoy these every single time we do them. Dave's been a great mentor in terms of whiskey for me, and I learn more each and every time. So thanks for joining us. Thanks. And good evening.
Yeah. All the best. Until next time.